afternoon. Parshas Chukat, Tavshin Pei Aleph. As usual, there are a lot of things happening in the parsha. Miriam died, Geseba and Moshe and Aaron. Aaron dies. We have no idea why Miriam had anything to do with this. Supposedly, Moshe and Aaron died. We're not exactly sure what Aaron had to do with this either. Rashi talks about it in V'zois HaBrocha. But the three of them never make it to Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe, he hit the rock, whatever that means. Hit the rocks, whatever the Aveira was there by Moshe Rabbeinu. Because he doesn't go into Eretz Yisrael. It's remember, this story is taking place already. We have a jump here in Parshat Shlach, and then in Korach. The Jews were basically in the second year of the Midbar. They had 38 more years left to go after the Chet HaMeraglim. In this week's Parsha, Rashi tells us almost at the beginning of the Parsha, by Misa and Miriam, this is already year 40 in the desert. So 38 years occurred, and basically we don't know anything what's happening during those 38 years. If there was something we needed to know about, the Rebbeinu Shalom would have written in the Torah. But there's 38 years between Shlach Korach and boom, 38 years later, Parshas Chukas, and Miriam dies. Why did Miriam die for? Why couldn't she go into Eretz Yisrael? She had nothing to do with Mei Meriva. In fact, by the time they hit the rock, she died already. Why did Miriam die? And Rashi in V'zois HaBrocha asks, why did Aaron die? Aaron didn't hit the rock. Aaron didn't. Why did he die? So all these are good to kashas, but that's what we have. So we have Mrs. Miriam, Mrs. Aaron, we have the Mei Meriva, we have already Milchamas with Sichon and Oig at the end of the Parsha. I've said many times, say it again, Rav Kook's famous word. At the end of Parshas Chukas, this week's Parsha, Moshe goes into war with Sichon and Oig. Sichon melech Heshbon and Oig melech Habasha. So Rav Kook used to say that once Moshe Rabbeinu heard at the beginning of Chukas that he wasn't going into Eretz Yisrael, and the generation that he took out of Mitzrayim basically were not going to Eretz Yisrael. Anybody that was 20 or over at the Chet HaMeraglim was not going into Eretz Yisrael. They all died in the Midbar. So he's not going. The people he took out of Mitzrayim basically are not going. So it's the next generation that's going into Eretz Yisrael. But he wanted to make sure that the next generation would actually go into Eretz Yisrael. So what did he do? He killed the Cheshbonis. Because the one thing that holds people back from going to Eretz Yisrael is Cheshbonis. Is it the right time? Are my children ready? Are my grandchildren ready? Spoke about last year, the famous rabbi in America, he gave a ganze drasha about his grandchildren. It'd be hard for his grandchildren to make Aliyah. They don't understand Hebrew. So he doesn't know if he can make Aliyah. Okay, say that. I mean, these are all good Cheshbonis. So Rav Kook said, Ersten darf man weghaken the Cheshbonis, nach dem can again to Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu did everybody a favor. He kills Sichon melech Heshbon, because you got to kill the Cheshbonis. Okay, fine. So there's a lot happening in the parsha, and of course the beginning of the parsha, Paraduma. What's this Paraduma thing? Tumas mess. Tumas mess like no other mess. A person becomes Leileno Mitzayra, he doesn't need a Paraduma. A Mitzayra is a ganz unbelievable tumah. It's a worse tumah than kimat touching a mess. A Mitzayra has to leave all three machanas. He has to leave he couldn't even be inside the city of Yerushalayim. Any walled city, a Mitzayra can't be inside a walled city in Eretz Yisrael. He has to leave. A mess, a tumas mess, somebody touched a dead body. All right, so He has to do certain things, but doesn't have to leave his home and leave his wife. But a Mitzvah doesn't need a paraduma. So Mesmes needs a paraduma. And again, we repeat this 100 times just so that we can be clear. There are certain things that after 120 years, when I come up to base in Shamad, Reb Bar Shalom is going to say, what did you do with your life? I'm not going to have too many things to say. Obviously, my answer is not going to be, I wrote some briefs for a law firm. I don't think that's what he's looking for. Could be he is, maybe not. Talk about that. Well, one of the things I'll be able to say, hopefully, is there are a whole bunch of Jews that know the first Rashi and Chumash Kemat Baal Peh, because I say it 3 times a year for 14 years already, Baruch Hashem. And they understand that Eretz Yisrael belongs to Jewish people because you said so. Repeat again a different thing. Just not to have the shtus in your head, because Yosef just reminded me this morning about the Harabayas. You go to the Harabayas, you don't go to the Harabayas, Tov Alecha Brocha, Elu Ve'elu Divil Kim Chayim, Seder. But if you don't go to the Harabayas because you came into contact with a dead body and you're Tomei Mes, and that's why you can't go, or someone tells that to you, so you tell the person that you're Nama Oretz, nicely, but you say you're Nama Oretz, because you didn't even learn Chumash and Rashi. And the Chumash and Rashi becomes a Gemara in Psachim, which becomes a Rambam, which becomes Halacha Mufureshes. There were 3 camps in the Midbar. We talked about this. There was Machne Yisrael, Machne Levia, Machne Shechina. Machne Shechina was once you entered the Mishkan. Machne Levia were the Leviim and Moshe Aaron who lived around the Mishkan. And outside, Moshe, Aaron, and the Leviim were the 12 Shvatim in 4 camps, north, east, south, west, with their flags, the 4 flags. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu live? In Machne Levia. Or was Moshe Rabbeinu carrying with him 40 years in the Midbar? Yosef's bones. So not only was there a Tumas Mes issue here, forget about that, but there was a dead body in Machne Levia. When we came to Eretz Yisrael, the halacha became that Yerushalayim is a copy image of the way the Jews lived in the Midbar. Therefore, from the wall of Yerushalayim until the wall of the Harabayas is Machne Yisrael. From the wall of the Harabayas until what we'll call the Chel on the Harabayas, just to keep it simple, we're going to call that Machne Levia, although the Machne Levia Midoraisa went further, we're going to call that the Machne Levia. And then past that, you get into a quasi area, and once you get into Shar Nikanor, those 15 steps that led from the women's section to the men's section, so to speak, to Ezra's Noshim, to Ezra's the famous picture, the 15 steps, the Levium stood on the 15 steps and sang She'ar Malay Sad Simchas Beis Shayeva. Once you go into Shar Nikanor, you're Machne Shechina. But Machne Levia is the Har Habayis. Until a certain point on the Har Habayis. It's Machne Levia. Moshe lived in Machne Levia. With what? A dead body, Yosef's bones. So that means you can walk on the Harabayas. Not only if you touch the dead body, you can bring a dead body on the Harabayas until a certain place in the Harabayas. But there's a large area on the Harabayas. You can almost take a dead body there. How do I know that? Because Moshe Rabbeinu did in the Machne Levia. So there could be all kinds of issues about going up to the Harabayas, Eil Ve'el Divlim Kayim. But if a good definer, Tzaddik Dekayid, says you can't go to Harabayas, Tumas Mez, no Paraduma, tell him to please learn a Rashi in Parshas Nosai. Okay. So we have the Parsha of Tumas Mes in this week's Parsha. So I want to expound a bit on something we spoke about last year. Of course, last year we were zooming this, and we didn't really finish the Rav Kook that we started last year on this inyan of Tumah. Now we understand, to begin with, it doesn't require a great amount of intellect to understand that the Paraduma is the greatest example of a chayk. There are mitzvahs in the Torah that we call mitzvahs, the human being can understand logically. or most human beings understand logically, like thou shalt not kill. Until recently, thou shalt not kill was basically, thou shalt not kill. You don't kill people. But in Chicago every day and on weekends, and Los Angeles and in New York, thou shalt not kill is a tremendous chiddush. That's a chiddush. What do you mean you can't kill? I'm in the mood of killing people. Yeah, so it became a big chiddush. But it used to be, you don't kill. It used to be that you don't steal. Of course you don't steal from someone. It's not your thing. You don't steal. Today, it's a consequence of chiddush. That's not, what do you mean not allowed to steal? So we live because we're in such a modern society, high-tech society, that stealing is okay. There's nothing wrong with stealing. So if you don't believe me, I can send you the link to you can actually watch this. And there was another story this week. California raised the level of robbery to, I think, $900. Every state has a different thing. So, for example, if you walk into a candy store and you take a chocolate bar that costs $1, so you can get arrested, but, Lamaisa, the judge is going to say, go home, don't do it again. At what point do you have what we would call a serious crime, a felony? So every state says, this one says if you steal $200, one says $400. Once you get to a felony, it's already a shtickle dova chomo. California says that a felony robbery occurs, I believe, $900. Up to $900, hefka base and hefka, do whatever you want. I stole $850. The policeman takes you in, and they said, and the owner of the store said, the judge says, how much was it worth? What did he steal? He said, how much? $850. Don't do it again, and you're on probation for 30 days. Okay. Whatever. So there's a famous video that occurred about 8 months ago, 7 months ago. It was during Corona. America is still Corona. Who knows where Corona is, not Corona is. Baruch Hashem. An investigative reporter heard about this. So he went to California, he went to San Francisco. San Francisco, wow, to live in San Francisco 50, 40 years ago. Eze Gevir, he lives in San Francisco. He lives in 32 meters in San Francisco with an IKEA bedroom and an IKEA kitchen for $2 million. Eze Gevir, Eze Yachas. Okay. Today you can't even walk in San Francisco. All the streets are filled with homeless people. So this investigative reporter goes to San Francisco. He hears about that the people, we won't say what kind of people. People walk into Walgreens, CVS's, these places, with bags, and they take aspirin, or orthotics for the shoes, all the things that these places sell that have nothing to do with drugs. They take them off, and they're very careful. It shouldn't be $900. And they walk out of the store, and the security guards don't even stop them. And the guy interviews the security guy, says, what are you doing? He says, we gave up, we called the police come, they check what's in the bag, and they say, this guy's been in front of a judge how many times? They just let him out, we're not even going to arrest him this time. So you would think chutzpah ends there? They wait a day or two, and the investigative reporter heard about this, and he comes back, and the people who stole the $700-800 worth of goods, they go back to Walgreens, CVS, and they get online to get their money returned, to get cash. Because what do I need $100 bottles of aspirin for, right? So they go over, and you need a receipt, right? You need a receipt that you bought it and paid for it. They don't even ask for a receipt. They take back the 100 bottles of aspirin, they give them cash. Now the guy's got cash, right? The city of San Francisco. So there used to be a time where there was, and it happened this week. This week there was a place where a guy literally came in with a big garbage bag. He was loading up a garbage bag of stuff. I don't know if it was a Walgreens or CVS. He was loading up a whole ganze. He came with those big black garbage bags, and he loaded it up. So it used to be a time where you don't steal. When people were primitive, when we were primitive, and we didn't have smartphones, and we didn't have 5 gigabyte internet, and we didn't have space technology, we knew not to steal. But we've become such an advanced society with so much technological advances that today You're not allowed to steal? Can you show me where it says that, maybe? Okay. So we become a very advanced society. Baruch Hashem. But we all know that those are mitzvahs that at one time used to be common sense, but then there are chukim. Chukim is a mitzvah that has no logical explanation. When we talk about chukim, we look at the Parah Adumah. We say the Parah Adumah is the greatest example of a chayk. And that's how the parasha starts. Zois chukas ha-Torah. This is the chukah of the Torah. Shlomo HaMelech wrote, Amarti echkama v'ira chayka mimeni. Pasuk in Koheles. Shlomo HaMelech said, I'm the smartest guy that ever lived, and I don't understand Parah Adumah either. Somebody comes into contact with a dead body, he's tamei. What does tamei mean? It's already a chayk. I don't know what it means. What does tamei mean? He's dirty. The guy took 100 showers. He went to the mikveh 100 times. After he touched the dead body, he went into the mikveh 100 times. If he goes into the Beis HaMikdash, he's chayv kares. What already is on this guy's body? We don't know. It's a chayk. So how does he become tahor? On the third day, on the seventh day, he has the ash of a red heifer sprinkled on him. Oh, now everything's okay, and go Beis HaMikdash. What is tumah? Why is tumah smesochama? What does the Parah Adumah do for it? We understand this is beyond human logic. Okay. So now the Gemara says, on Daf Tesayin Amud Beis in Shabbos, Shimon ben Shotach tiken ksuba leisha v'goza tuma al kli matchis. Shimon ben Shotach, you don't have this on your hand, I'm just reading from on Shabbos. Shimon ben Shotach, who's already living during the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, he's the one that made the takana that a woman gets a ksuba. Sounds like until that time, there's no ksuba. And he said that metal vessels can become tamei. Sounds like until then, metal vessels did not become tamei. Now, we all know that metal becomes tamei like real easy. Wood, a little more complicated. Earthenware, metal, metal, mamish, the tumah. Something touches metal, your frying pan. A dead rat touches your frying pan, and you're makbid on eating chulin b'tahara. You got a tummy dick a frying pan. What do you mean, Shimon ben Shotach? So Gemara says, Kli matchis doiraisen, who dichsiv aches azoves hakesef. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Metal becomes tummy. What do you mean, Shimon ben Shotach did it? So Gemara says, Lo nitzcha el l'tumah yishana. What we're talking about is an old tumah. What's an old tumah? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Maisa b'Sheltzion Hamalka. It's a story about Queen Sheltzion. She lived in the time, Rashi says, of Shimon ben Shotach. Who exactly is she? We'll leave that alone. But she was a queen / princess in Eretz Yisrael among the Jewish people. Her name is, sometimes they call her Shlom Tzion Hamalka, sometimes they call her Sheltzion Hamalka. Okay. So she's the princess here in Eretz Yisrael. She also mishta libna. She's making a big party for her son. V'nitnu kol keileha. And the whole queen, princess's kitchen becomes tamei. So whatever happened in there, a mitzvah came in, what came in, all the pots and pans, in those days pots and pans are what? Metal. Right? They didn't have Teflon yet. So everything's metal. The whole place is tamei. No, but the queen already sent out invitations to the party, and everybody's going to show up. And these pots and pans have a tumas mess. Now, if you somehow somebody, let's make the case easy. Somebody who touched the dead body touched all the kalim in the kitchen. I don't want to go into Rish and Shani now. Just keep it simple. What do you have to do now to these pots and pans? On the third day and on the seventh day, you have to sprinkle them with Parah Adumah. And then you take them to the mikveh. It's not going to work. The party's tomorrow. And everyone is coming. Now, how do you cancel a party? So she has a great idea. Vishav Rosam, either she or one of her helpers took all the metal vessels. You take a hammer and you break them. And now once you break them, What is it now? It's not a keli anymore. If it's not a keli anymore, it's not tamei anymore. Only a keli can be tamei. And she gave it to a blacksmith, and the blacksmith fixed them up again, and now they're tar. Why? Because it's not the keli that became tamei. The keli that became tamei broke. What got fixed now is a new keli. And this is absolutely permissible in halacha, according to the strict halacha. An example that I'll give you, some people do this. You have a hot water urn that you bought, made in Chutz La'aretz. You have to toivel it. Well, what am I going to do? Dip the electric thing in there? We all have the toaster, this, and there are all kinds of tshuvas in the poskim about this. Or Moshe has tshuvas about this. Okay. What do people do? They take the hot water urn and they cut the plug. They cut the plug. The end of the plug, the thing that goes into the wall. They cut it off from the wire. Now, can you use that urn? That's it, it's finished. Now, you take the plug and you reconnect it to the wires, and what did you just do? You made it into a keli. So who made the keli? A Jew. You don't have to be toivel at all. Okay. So, no, but there are places that hold you can do this. So, Shontzina Malka, Shontzina has this great idea. The party's going forward. We're going to break all the kelim, so it's not tamei anymore. The blacksmith, the palace blacksmith will fix it up. They're new vessels. We're having the party tomorrow. The Chachamim in that generation, meaning Shimon ben Shatach, who lived during this story, they said, Yachsru l'tumah yishana. They're tamei. So when the Gemara said that Shimon ben Shatach said that metal vessels will be tamei, it doesn't mean metal vessels will be tamei. The Torah says that. He said that if you break metal vessels that are tamei tumas mes, and you try to get around the 3rd and 7th day requirement, it's not going to help you. Rabbinically, they remain tamei. You must do the 3-7 day paraduma thing. Period. You're not going to short circuit this. Why? My time mishum geder me chatas naguba, because they didn't want people to do the short circuit job, because 1 generation, 2 generations, what happens? If your metal vessel becomes tamei tumas mes, what do? You break it and then you fix it. Nobody even remembered that there's such a thing as paraduma. Eventually, what happens? 1 generation, 2 generations. I saw my mommy did this, my bubba did this, my elder bubba did this. What did they do? It became tamei. We broke it. We fixed it. Say, paraduma. I never heard paraduma. I never saw anybody do paraduma. What are you talking paraduma? Right. So Shimon ben Shatach said, we're not doing this because these short circuit routes end up making people forget the paraduma. That's the ma'aseh here with Shimon ben Shatach.
Like sticking the knife in the flower pot, and it stays there for a week.
It never worked for me because I forget it there. And Bisman Azeh, a lot of these things, people have to get over this. I had a friend whose grandfather was a posek in the old city of Yerushalayim in the 1930s, pre-state. Could be his great-grandfather. And in the morning, after davening in the old city, there'll be a line of old ladies, there'll be a line of ladies outside his office in the shul with little bowls, and in the bowls would be cracked eggs. And they would come there and ask him if it was a blood spot or not a blood spot. Why? Because people were living in abstract poverty. You didn't just, today you see a blood spot, no, throw it out. No, you have 2 dozen in the fridge. In those days, women lined up daily in the morning Is the blood spot or not blood spot? You don't throw out eggs. They couldn't afford to throw out 2 or 3 eggs. So today, we can, Baruch Hashem, afford the smartphones, and we can afford the gasoline, and we can afford alle feine gute Sachen. And when it comes to being machshir a knife, what is the best way to do this in the ground and there? Because a new knife would be 18 shekel. So we have to really prioritize our Torah life. Okay, so on the first page of your handout, in fact, let me skip first. Let me tell you what Rav Kook says, because I want to get to page 2, which is where we didn't get to last year on the Zoom. Rav Kook says that there are 2 ways for the bad to turn into the good. There are 2 ways for Tumah to become Tahor, or Ra to turn Taiv. You can do it real quick, and it's true with chinuch also, it's true with everything. Your child has nebuch, not on the derech or whatever. You can take a sledgehammer, hit him over the head, and you read him the riot act. Yeah, no. You want another whack over the head? Now, 200-300 years ago, these kind of things worked. My father's Zechrono Livracha, I said this numerous times, I was the youngest in the family, and at the Shabbos table, I was a young kid, and everybody was older than me, and it was a game to me to kick everyone under the table. Remember, you kick under the table, and you just look up innocently, and you kick everybody under the table. Nobody knows who kicked who. Everybody gets into a fight. The whole Shabbos table becomes a balagan. Who kicked who? Who did that? Who? I'm looking at it like this. So, when my father discovers at a particular time, this happened more than once, that it's me. I'm doing this under the table. So he stands up at the front of the table like this, and he goes like this. There you go. Goes like this. He waves this at me. Didn't say a word. I knew exactly what that meant. And that's it. Came quiet at the Shabbos table. Okay. So we're not holding by these things anymore. And if Chas Shalom even did that, your kid would call social services on you, and he would testify against you, and you would need your wife to bail you out of jail. So we don't do these things anymore. And because we don't do these things anymore, Baruch Hashem, kids are growing up much better with more derech eretz. There's less chutzpah in the world. Baruch Hashem, we'll become more advanced, and we're progressing beautifully. So there was a time where you can take what we call the sledgehammer approach. And then there's an approach where Tumah becomes Tahor and Ra becomes Tov la'at la'at. And you try to convince the person so that he comes to his own Seichel Dika conclusion that he needs to change. This is a Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos on Daf Zayin says, learns out from a pasuk, Toiv mardus achas beliba shel adam yoyse mimei malkis. You will accomplish more in the long run with a person who, from his own seichel, through you explaining it to him, he comes through his own seichel that he has to change. That will be more effective in the long run than whipping him 100 times. Because whipping him 100 times until he does something that he's supposed to do means, as soon as he's not scared of the whip, like you're not around anymore, he goes back to who he was. If what he's doing is because of the whip, when the whip is not there, so it's just a short-term effect. But if you can explain to a person so that he understands that he needs to change, it comes from the person's inside, that has a much longer, it may take a lot longer to accomplish it, but it'll also have a lot longer effect. The 100 whips talks about a Gemara in Eruvin. A Gemara in Eruvin, Daf Nun Gimel Beis, has a story there, whatever the case is. An Amoira, I believe an Amoira, Hanina, I don't remember who, needed directions to get to a place. So he meets a young boy, and the young boy says there are 2 ways to get to where you want to go. Yesh derech kitzara v'arucha, yesh derech arucha kitzara. Which one do you want? So there's a whole story there about it. So the Tanya says there are 2 ways to go about life. get immediate results, but in the long run they fizzle out, or work on something for a long time, and then it'll be long-term results. Those are two choices we're always making. So there's a person comes to his own understanding that will be more effective in the long term than whipping him 100 times, the Gemara says. So Rav Kook says that the derech of tahara the Torah wants to teach us from this such chomur tumah, this tumah of mess, the Torah wants to teach us, and Shimon ben Shattach put that into us with his takana, that things go slow. There's a third day. Now I want to become tahar today. A very serious thing happened here. You came into contact with a dead body. Nu is vas. Okay, you have a kasha. We don't understand tum and tahara. It's a chayk. The Rebbeinu Shalom saying something very serious happened in the halachas of tumah. And la'at. This is not going to be boom and we're done. You're not going to be able to do this in 1 second, because 1 second don't give you long-term results. On the third day, and then what do I do after the third day? Patience. Wait till the seventh day. What do you mean? This ash from a red heifer is not good enough once on the third day, or it's not good enough once on the seventh day? There's a process here. The process is called tahara. The process of tahara goes in stages. It doesn't happen boom. The third day, then you wait. The seventh day, fine. This Shlamsi and Hamalka came up with a tremendous idea. Her pots become tameh, and she's going to figure out how to do what? I'm going to make it tar the very same day. We're going to shortcut the whole long route. Shimon ben Shattach says you can't do that. What the Rebbeinu Shalom is teaching us about Tumas Mass is it goes la'at. You don't go boom in these kind of serious situations. It goes bahadroga, step by step by step, and that's where you get the long-term result. In the same way, Rav Kook said, and there's so many sources for this, famous Yushalmi in Brachas, is that the geula that we're waiting for today, b'meher v'yameinu, is a process. It's la'at. It's going to go in stages. And this Chazal are filled with this discussion about the geula is a step by step by step approach. It's not the Shlom Tzion Hamalka that you're in Galus, boom, we'll break everything, and suddenly we'll be in geula. It's a process. We're in Galus, and on day 3 this will happen, and then there'll be a pause, and on day 7 this will happen. It's a process in stages. That's how the geula will happen. And this is what we're being taught in this week's Parshat, not just about Tum and Tahara and Ran Toib. We're talking about the Golus and the geula from the Tumah. And I would mention, which we talked about last year on Zoom, I'm not making this up. I'm really not making this up. I said this as an introduction when we were learning on Zoom last year. It's a Mishnah in Nazir, and the Gemara in Nazir, the Gemara talks about it. Chazal will goyis a tumah on chutz la'aretz. It's a sugi in Shabbos also. The ground in chutz la'aretz is rabbinically tameh. It's a whole shaila if a kohen is allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to go to chutz la'aretz because he's becoming tameh. Whole shaila the Gemara. And today there are poskim that have these tshuvas about, is a kohen allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael because he is rabbinically being metam himself. Chazal will go use a tum in chutz la'aretz. When the Ramban in this week's Parsha, Nachmanides in this week's Parsha, at the end of the Parsha's Tum and Tahara, the Ramban writes, and we don't understand these things today. Ki anachnu temei hagolus. We're contaminated with Golus mentality. So he puts two things together, Golus and Tumah. We are contaminated by a Golus mentality. Anachnu temei hagolus. So if Golus is a Tumah, and there's Tumah in Eretz Ha'amim, there's a process by which we leave the Golus and the Tumah Eretz Ha'amim, and we come to a state of Geula. And that state of Geula is going to be a process. But people, there's a whole shita out there that, we talked about it last week, a whole shita out there that you just sit and do your thing. In Los Angeles, Muncie, everything, you get beat up in the streets today, right? How many stories happened this week? Anybody know? Nobody knows, because nobody's even keeping track of them, except for the ones that get reported. In Los Angeles, in the middle of the Jewish neighborhood, a guy came over and smashed up a little boy outside the yeshiva building. And when someone came over to help the little boy, the guy's friend came over and said something about, I'm going to kill this boy's whole family, v'chulu, v'chulu. In the Jewish neighborhood in Los Angeles. In Manhattan, last Shabbos, the West Side. I have an apartment on the West Side. Wow. You have an apartment on the West Side. Do you daven in the big shul there, the West Side shul? Yeah, you daven. You can afford to be a member in that shul. Unbelievable. So in the Halakha West Side over there, Jews were walking home from shul last Shabbos. They were pelted with eggs as they were walking home from shul. So, and this is just two. There's every day there are stories. And Baruch Hashem today, because we have smartphones, everybody gets excited, take out their phones and they video this stuff and then they upload it, and everybody. If you told the stories, you wouldn't believe it. But because of the smartphones, you mamish can watch it. So I said to a friend of mine yesterday, I said, I don't get it anymore. I push it, don't get it anymore. The Rebbeinu Shalom is really giving our brothers and sisters all over the world gentle taps. Eggs, a punch in the head. It's gentle taps. Get out. You don't belong here anymore. And they don't get it. They want the Rebbeinu Shalom to hit them a little harder. So instead of eggs, we'll throw some rocks at you. Nah, you still don't get it. We'll drop a boulder on your head. You still don't get it. You know, the Rebbeinu Shalom loves us. Knock, knock, tap, you home? Okay. I don't know what the answer is, but I think the Rambam may answer in this week's Parsha. It's a Tamei Golus. And Golus is a Tumah. Do we understand Tumah? We don't understand Tumah. Can we understand why a Jew would subject himself to this and say the golden of Medina, it's going to pass, it's going to this, it's going to that? In America, nothing can happen. It's a Tumas HaGolus. So there's this narrative out there that stay put. This narrative went on in Germany as well. When Hitler came to power, there were Groise Gedolim, Hashgacha Prat. I don't know what it is. It's not my business either. They told you to stay put. Hitler's a Michiganer. There have been a lot of Michiganers in Europe. They come, they go. We'll be okay. Okay. The people that stayed Nebuch didn't end up so good, and the people that didn't listen and left, and most of them either went to Palestine, England, or South America. Baruch Hashem. Their families and children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. But that's a narrative, a Golus narrative, that you can take the Jew out of Golus, but you can't take the Golus out of the Jew. You just can't. So let's take a look now at page 2 for a minute. This is a sefer. It's a little shticklich, little speeches that Rav Uri Sarki gives in the yeshiva. We won't talk about who he is, what he is. You agree with him, you don't agree with him. But this sefer has little snippets of machshava. And he has a lot of quotes from Rav Kook that are not found in other places. One beautiful, I'll give you an example, which is not on your sheet. It brings down that Rav Kook was once asked, in the 1910s, 1920s, they opened up in Eretz Yisrael, Jews opened up, I forgot what it was called, it was opened up by that person, I forgot his name, Schatz. In fact, in Yerushalayim there's a Rehov Schatz. This person, Schatz, opened up a school of art. It was the first Jewish school of art in Eretz Yisrael. You know, from, if they had a school of art 2,000 years ago, But since there's no school of art, and you open a school of art, so Goysa Simcha, School of Art, so we're going to have Jewish painters and Jewish sculptors. And Vaz, what do you want from me? Rav Kook thought it was a great thing. He wrote a letter, it's a gewaltige thing. So people asked him, what is so gewaltig? What does it mean to you? So they opened already an art school. They didn't open a base medrash, they opened an art school. So he said like this, I want to give you a marshal. A little child is very sick. Mamish on the deathbed, loyal lady. So long as his parents so long as the parents hear the child say, I need water, I need water, I need water, they understand the child is very sick and the child is very thirsty. The first time they hear the child say, I want my toy, I want my building blocks, I want my baby doll, what does that tell the parents? He's getting back to himself. What does that tell you about life, Rav Kook said? That when people scream for the absolute necessities, it doesn't mean they're alive. But when people start screaming for what we call tuffle, no shtuyot, it means that they're alive again. Right? There's something going on here. They're screaming, we want Jewish painters, we want Jewish sculptors. Shtuyot, what do you need that for? No. We've been dead for 2,000 years, and now, please, can I have my toys? Sometimes you hear this kind of screaming and this kind of need. It's a sign of life. It's a sign that our Jewish people are coming alive again. They're not dead. They're becoming culturally active. Can I have art? So he talks a lot about the Golus and the Geula. So here is a short piece. Nisoyin ha'emuna baschalta de Geula. We know that after Kriya Shema at night we say Emes ve'emuna. After Kriya Shema in the morning we say Emes v'yatziv. And the Gemara in Brachas and Afyud Beis explains really the difference. The Gemara says because when you say Shema at night it's dark outside, and dark is a symbol of Golus, the darkness of Golus. So after Kriya Shema, when you're looking at the darkness of Golus, say Emes ve'emuna. I'm going to get through this Golus, I'm going to get through the darkness of Golus with Emuna. In the morning where everything's bright and everything's sunshine, and I'm thinking about already the Geula, I say Emes v'yatziv. The Emes stands tall, v'yatziv. So at the night we say Emes Emuna, in the morning Emes Yatziv. So Rav Sarki says as follows: Ma hechzik esam Yisrael b'meshek kol cheshkas hagolus. What has held Jews together? What has empowered us to stay alive through 2,000 years of exile? It is the belief that one day we're going to leave darkness into light. While we were in Golus, Jewish people had unbelievable amount of emunah. Just tremendous amount of emunah. Unlimited emunah. Because that's what you live on. We're waiting to get to the Geula. Awal bizman ha-Geula, but once the Geula, you can start feeling that something is changing, something is happening. What do they want? Hem oimim emes v'yatziv. They want to see the truth standing. V'lo emes v'emunah. Roitz and Dvarim Barurim. Once the Geula time comes and you see the Geula starting to materialize, you don't want Emunah anymore. What do you want now? You want it to happen. And if it doesn't exactly happen the way you want it to happen, so what do you say to yourself? It's not happening. I gotta go back to Emunah. At night, when it's dark, Golos, I have Emunah. In the morning, the Geula, it's Yatziv. It has to be clear, I have to see it. But it's not going exactly the way I thought. It's not a Geula. Let's go back to Emunah. Therefore, there are greater problems in Emunah in our generation. Because we're no longer living in a time where we have to look forward to the darkness going completely away. We're now living in a period of time where the dream, hayinu kacholmim, that geula that we dreamed about, we can begin to see it slowly materializing. I don't know, to me it materializes. We walk around here all the time. You drive around there at Yisrael, anybody doesn't see it either is deaf, dumb, or blind, insane, stupid, whatever he is. But anybody going to say we're not living and watching Kibbutz Goliath? What are we watching here? What are you watching here? 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you either spoke Hebrew or Yiddish. Maybe some Hungarian. Today, you can go downstairs into the Beis Medrash. Chavrusas are learning in English, Hebrew, Yiddish, French, Russian, Spanish. They're talking Australian English. They're talking British English. And it's all in one Beis Medrash. Anybody doubt that we're living here in Kibbutz Goliath? No. It's the Sitra Achra. The Satan is doing this. People are crazy. Nissim Neflois. You drive on the one towards Tel Aviv. There's a junction there called Kibbutz Goliath. On your way to Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv. To get to Tel Aviv, there's a big sign, Kibbutz Goliath. Anybody can deny we're living through Kibbutz Goliath? Sure, if you're insane, you can say we're not living Kibbutz Goliath. So we're watching Mamish, the dream that the Nevi'im said, there's going to come a day from the four corners of the earth, you're going to come back to this land. And we're watching it happen. And now that we watch it happen, what happens? We want it to absolutely happen clearly in one day, right away. But that's not what we learned from this week's Parsha. There's a process here. Something happens on day 3, something happens on day 7. And therefore, if it doesn't happen right away and as quickly as we want it, we immediately say, Afal Shem Mashiach. It's not the real thing. It was just a deception of the Yetzer Hara. And that's the Mishbar HaEmunah B'Deivenu. That's the breakdown of Emunah in our day. So we learn out from this week's Parsha, from Hilchos Tumah Tara 3 and 7. We learn out from the Takon of Shimon ben Shatach that Shlom Sina Malka can't do it in one day. That we do arrive at a point where we're in the process of Tara. Person became Tomei Mes. On the 3rd day, he begins that process. So what does the person do? He says, God, I have the Parah Adumah sprinkled on me. I want to go in the Beis HaMikdash. You're the name. I don't understand this red heifer business, but I already got sprinkled with red heifer. I want to go to Beis HaMikdash. It's all No. You can't go to Beis HaMikdash yet. We started the process of your Tahara. But now there are going to be more stages to your Tahara. You're going to get sprinkled the 7th day. You're going to have to go to the mikveh. Oh, it's happening in stages. I understand. And that's what the Parsha is teaching us according to Rav Kook. And that's what Shimon ben Shatach was teaching us. In Yetz Hashem, we should go into the Be'emes, finish with all these stages. We should see Bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu Meher V'Yameinu. Amen. Everybody have a wonderful Shabbos.